Chase Robertson. In what ways are members allowed to use Scientology in an artistic setting? I've heard of songs being written about it, but what if someone wrote a novel about a detective who uses the church to help solve cases? Would that be allowed? Has it been done? I have seen over the years various writers, specifically as what I'm thinking of right now, also songs that sometimes mentioned or comes up in songs over the years. Non-Scientologists have mentioned Scientology or referred to Scientology, referred to L. Ron Hubbard. I think the Beatles even refer to Hubbard at one point, or St. Hill or something in one of their songs. So there have been non-Scientologists referring to Scientology. I remember a science fiction book one time set in the future where the author talked about a roommate who was an orthodox Scientologist, which is probably truer than we would like to think is going to happen in the future, right? Because we already have official Scientology and independent Scientology, which has about 1,000 different flavors. So anyway, so it has been mentioned in those kind of places by non-Scientologists, and of course it's, a classic butt of jokes now. But as far as in the world of Scientology, which is I know where you're asking about this, it's not really used directly. It's used indirectly, even by L. Ron Hubbard. All through Mission Earth series, all through Battlefield Earth, there's tons of Scientology concepts and philosophical points all throughout those works. And I think a lot of Scientologists took their cue or take their cue from Hubbard as to how to go about talking about Scientology, which is that they don't mention it directly. They just fill their stories with all the principles of Scientology. So that's kind of how I've seen Scientologists use this. I think the reason for this is because you may or may not know that back in the 1960s and 70s, there were Scientologists writing about Scientology other than L. Ron Hubbard. There was a woman named Ruth Minshall, famously, who wrote a number of books about using Scientology, not fiction books, nonfiction books. There was another couple authors who used Scientology principles in business guides or in books about that. But this was all sort of church sanctioned, and then in the mid to late 1970s, I think early 80s, all of that was pulled, all that was canceled. They no longer had authorization to do anything like that. And the way you get authorization for that is it's called, within the church, it's called issue authority. You're given authority to issue this, piece of paper, bulletin, book, pamphlet, essay, whatever. It has to have issue authority. And that means somebody in the church, the post is the L. Ron Hubbard communicator or LRH communicator, has to stamp it and okay that. And that's not really given out anymore to to outside the church kind of things like it used to be. So I think that's why you're going to see you're not going to see Scientologists who are going to be writing or talking or creating things artistically and putting Scientology directly and by name into the materials. You're going to see indirect references to it. So I think that whole issue authority thing is probably the reason why. And they just, and also there's a fear. Another thing is that there's a fear of joking and degrading. L. Ron Hubbard was death on that. If you're literally labeled psychotic if you're found making jokes about Scientology as a subject. So, and this could easily be morphed into mentioning Scientology at all. I mean, keep in mind, we're talking about a destructive cult here. These are not a bunch of rational people. So, so this could spread to, so writing about Scientology, even in any kind of a fictional sense, could be viewed as a kind of degrading of Scientology. If you get anything wrong or you slip up in some way or there's somehow a person could interpret what you wrote in a negative way, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So, no Scientologist wants to go through any of that hassle, so they tend to just not do it. That is all my experience. It is entirely possible that in the world of Scientology, over the decades it's been around, somebody's done this and I've never heard about it. And so, let me know about it in the comments. I'd be curious to find out. But this was my experience with it. So there you go.